Now, a few weeks ago here on the Kermode Uncut blog, I did a slightly jokey post in response to a news story that the BFI had announced a search for lost classics which might be loitering in somebody's attic. They might be found in someone's attic. And I asked you to suggest to me movies that we have plenty of copies of that you'd like to see lost in the attic of history. And although it was a jokey post, I've had more responses to it than any other post here on the Kermode Uncut blog. I think the last time I looked, there was something like 400 responses. What was interesting was how many of you cited sequels or follow-ups that had somehow damaged an original. So Jaws 2 came up, Exorcist 2, which for me is very important because it completely undermines the original Exorcist. Matrix Reloaded, strangely enough, a lot of people really took against that as somehow doing damage to the original Matrix. But the thing which got the most number of mentions after Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, which apparently wasn't as good as the original Indiana Jones movies, was the Star Wars prequels and the Star Wars remasters. Many of you wrote in to say that somehow the prequels, which were obviously made after the first three films, had done a disservice to the first three Star Wars films, and the remasters hadn't done them any favours either. Although I should point out, in the interest of editorial balance, that Matthew Still quotes me as having said, presumably on Radio 1, that The Phantom Menace is not terrible. Now, I don't remember saying that, but the fact is, it seems like a very authoritative quote, and if I did say that it's not terrible, believe me, I was talking rubbish. So, from the hundreds of responses you sent in suggesting movies that should be lost in the attic of history, here are just a few that caught my eye. This from Andrew Pragasam: surely the collective output of the Wayans brothers would make a prime candidate. I agree, along with the collective output of Michael Bay. This from Lorna, which I really loved. First suggestion for a film that should be lost: The Time Traveller's Wife. Really loved the book and was really let down by how rubbish the film was. A feeling made worse by the knowledge that it was at one time going to be directed by David Fincher, who decided to film Benjamin Button instead. And second suggestion for a film that should be lost: Benjamin Button. 2.5 hours of my life that I will never get back. So god-awfully bad. Wooden acting throughout and delusions of depth. I couldn't agree more. Now, some of your suggestions for movies which should be lost got a bit personal. This from Neon Love Chicken: 1, Twilight; 2, New Moon; 3, Eclipse. Yeah, that's right, Kermode, you heard me. If possible, I would like to throw every copy of the books in there as well. Your recent proclamations that the story is about true love are ridiculous. True love should be about equality and trust, and the relationship in Twilight isn't either of these. Yours truly, a distressed 18-year-old girl. Which leads me on to this interesting point from Mark H. Wilkinson. Try as I might, I can't think of a single film which I dislike or disapprove of so much that I would see lost. Even though the intent behind this exercise is light-hearted, which it was, it's too close to asking which books ought to be burned. The correct answer is none. Now, as I said before, and as Mr. Wilkinson acknowledges, the whole thing was a joke, but what's interesting is just how many of you did end up inverting the premise of the blog and saying, actually, I'd like to save this movie, which other people would like to see lost in the attic of history. And one of the most interesting films that got that kind of support was Alien 3. Now, let me read you this, as typical, from Howie. I would just like to take the opportunity to add my support for the massively unappreciated Alien 3. I really, for the life of me, cannot understand how this film is not embraced as a worthy conclusion to the trilogy. Yes, that's right, trilogy. Resurrection does not exist in my universe. It's the darkest, most claustrophobic film in the series, with a host of great characters, and what better way to end the saga than with the heroine taking the foul beast down with her, a fighter right till the very end. Now, it's a very interesting post. As I'm sure you know, Alien 3 suffered from massive production problems. It started out as a Vincent Ward project about a wooden planet, and then during the various shenanigans that went on, David Fincher's cut was interfered with. At some point he was offered the chance to go back and fix it, a chance which he didn't take, and we've never really seen the proper full version of Alien 3. But I do agree that somewhere in the middle of what is, in my opinion, a mess of a movie, there is some kernel of strange, dark energy struggling to get out. More important, how terrific that when asked which films you'd like to see wiped off the planet, actually, you turned it round the other way and said, no, these are the films we'd like to save.